absolutely love it when technology comes together.
There we are. So over to you, Sandhya, to kick us off.
Thank you, Ryan. Just checking I've unmuted myself, which I have. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sandhya Iyer. I happen to be one of the HR consultants of HR Department. HR Department is a national franchise company. We particularly offer HR and employment law solutions to small and medium-sized employers, so anybody employing under 250 members of staff. And one of our main areas of focus is the local business community. And interestingly, that's how this whole partnership with Ryan and the FinWELL team has come about. And before I move on to the introductions, I just would like to say, we are going to take you through a presentation which FinWELL have very kindly put together in relation to what today's presentation is about, or what the topic is about. Please feel free to pop your questions in the chat window as and when you think of them, and they will be picked up towards the end of the presentation. And of course, if you don't want to pop it in the chat and you just want to think of something, you put your hand up, that will also be picked up at the end of the presentation. Moving on to the FinWELL team. Ryan and team are going to talk to you about what FinWELL do and what their main area of focus is. But Ryan particularly is the founder of FinWELL. He has been in financial services for over 10 years. He is a level 4 diploma qualified, and he also holds an accredited workplace financial education specialist qualification. He is a mental health first aider as well, and is very proud to be an ambassador and on the advisory board of Ripple Suicide Prevention Charity. And besides all of that, Ryan is also a team member of the Global Wellness Institute. So there is a well-rounded focus there on wellness in particular. Moving on to Justine Piercy, who is also, she leads training, which is really the bread and butter of FinWELL. And Justine has been in the banking sector for almost 30 years. She's held leadership and training roles before, unfortunately, being made redundant from the company. And more recently, she has worked with the Money Charity, and she now helps design and deliver 20-odd financial well-being related topics and themes, all related to the life journey of an employee and their career. She's also got qualifications in mortgage advice and is very passionate about helping people from all backgrounds build better relationships with money. And during this presentation, we are going to talk about some of these terminologies as to what it means to have a relationship with money. So again, there another nice, really well-rounded background for somebody to be advising on this matter, or rather training on this matter. Lucy Wallington, who has also joined us today, is one of the team members of FinWELL. She has had an extensive experience, a background in working with HR teams with big brands like Gap and Apple. And she, as part of the FinWELL team, she is the main HR liaison person, or rather the liaison person to work with HR communities across all FinWELL's clientele. So over to you now, Justine.
Yeah.
I'm going to put myself on mute. Okay. Thank you very much.
Oh, what a great introduction. Thank you, Sandy, and thank you everyone for taking time out of your busy days to come and join us today. So yeah, let's get going. And as Sandy says, feel free to put any questions in the chat function. We are going to use a couple of polls as well, which we're going to launch, hopefully, get involved as well. And we're going to give you a bit of a flavour, not just about some of the things that we're seeing in the workplace from an employer point of view, but also a flavour of what our workshops and our training delivery actually looks like, because we don't like delivering presentations, okay? The subject of money and financial well-being can be seen as quite a tricky subject, can be seen as a taboo subject for a lot of people. So we try very much to break down some of that stigma and make it a psychologically safe space for people to open up about their money worries. So we're going to give you a flavour as to kind of what our training and presentations are like today. And this visual here is the starting point for everything we do, okay? Because we know from our experiences, not just recently during the cost of living, but in general, that we all come from very different backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds. We have different beliefs and values. We all do different jobs, have different family circumstances. And I don't often hear people talk about this. I think people just assume that we're all in the same boat when it comes to money, and that is just simply not true. Okay, so we liken money and money management and cost of living and all these things to being in a very, very turbulent storm, and we all have to remember as employers and employees that we're not in the same boat. Some people really are struggling on the ground right now. And the only way we're going to get through this is to provide the support and the education and the tools to help empower people to make the most of the money that they do have. And that's essentially what we're all about. We also know that there is so many different areas that impact us throughout our lives. Okay, in this visual you'll see a lot during our training, but we know and we've learned as well, certainly over the last couple of years, that people will have different needs. Okay, some people will need education in just basic money management. Okay, getting to grips with budgeting, knowing what to do if they're in debt. Other people might want help with things like wills or planning for the future, or even thinking about longer term when it comes to retirement planning and pensions and all those things. So what we've seen is that, all of these areas of focus weave into every area of our lives. Parenting, if you've got young children, how to talk to kids about money, if you have to deal with a bereavement or trauma, if you're a victim of domestic abuse, all these things are weaved into different areas, and we very much touch on all of these different areas through the work that we do here at FinWELL. But the one thing I want to start us off with, though, is a quick poll. So let's see if we can get the magic of technology working on our screen. And let me see if I can relaunch this. Can you see that on your screen? Fingers crossed. Great. So my question is, and remember, this is all anonymous, so it doesn't matter. Do you have any kind of existing salary sacrifice schemes in place for any employees? If you're an SME or if you're an employer, do you have something? Is it something you're considering? Is it something in the works that's happening at the moment? Because we do see a wide difference, certainly when it comes to employee benefits, things like pension sacrifice, other types of salary sacrifice that perhaps aren't included, but actually people don't know how to do that. And that's something we've seen, isn't it, Ryan, that people need some help and support with. So brilliant. We've got a few people getting involved there. Hopefully you can all see that on your screen. Brilliant. Fantastic. What have we got? Brilliant. Oh, that just disappeared on me. Let me see if I can get that back up on the screen. Can you see that there on the screen? Okay, so we've got some people that do already have it in place. Some people may not have considered it. It's something that we can help with when it comes to particularly pension contributions as well. So just bear that in mind as we go through. Now, if I can get the slides to move forward. Oh, here we go. Oh, too quickly. Right, so let's go through. We're going to start off by looking at what financial well-being actually is, and we've learned as well over recent times that everyone has a different opinion about what financial well-being is, because it means different things to different people. So we're going to have a think about that, and I'm going to encourage you to get involved in that as well. We also want to hear from you, and we'll use the chat for this, or feel free to come off mute. What are some of the challenges that you're hearing, that you're seeing on the ground? What are employees talking to you about that might be concerning them? We'll give you a flavour of some of the sort of solutions and top tips of things that we can do to help through some of our offering and workshop delivery. And Ryan will then chat you through the kind of things that we can do to help and support, as well as what we've learned along the way, what works and what doesn't work, and also what we're going to do with our partnership with regards to yourselves at HR department. And then we're going to have loads of times for loads of Q&A. So don't worry if you don't get your question in at this point. We'll have plenty of time to do that towards the end. Now, what I'd like to do, though, is to think about what financial well-being means to you, okay? And I want you to have a think about is it about having control over your money? I'm just trying to get the poll to work, but the poll is not playing ball. Hold on a second. If I can't get the poll to work, Ryan, you might have to see if you can launch it. Hold on a second. Here we go. Here we go. Right. Question for you then. You tell me, what does financial well-being mean to you? And this is a question to ask employees as well as yourself. So is it just about getting through the month and paying the bills? Is it just that peace of mind that, thank goodness, the bills are there? Is it about planning for the future and thinking about those medium and long-term goals as well? Is it about knowing how to cope when things go wrong and having something behind us to withstand those future shocks, or is it something else? So just let me know what you think, because right now, what it means for you might be very different to what it might mean for some of your employees. So this is a really good question to ask as well. Brilliant. Excellent. I've got everyone involved. Brilliant. Thank you. Let's just see if we can share that. So interesting here. Most of you think it's about control. Having good financial well-being is about control. And I would agree with that. For others, though, it might be that peace of mind, paying the bills, but also keeping half an eye on the future. Now, I'm going to share with you now some thoughts around financial well-being, because as I said, it means different things to different people. So Aegon here suggests it's about control. You'd be surprised to know how many people don't have control over their finances, and also having a healthy, positive relationship with money. Because, we don't just work to pay the bills. We want to live our lives in the meantime and enjoy it and have a meaningful life, but not just now, but in the future as well. You're probably familiar with the Money and Pension Service. They talk about security, knowing that you can pay the bills today, but also that you can deal with the unexpected. Okay, we talk a lot about resilience, being financially resilient, and you'd be surprised how many people right now are not particularly resilient. But also this confidence and empowered, okay? I'm not sure many people can hold their hand up and say, I am absolutely confident I know what I'm doing with my money. And here at FinWELL, this is kind of what we think financial well-being is all about. We believe that the one thing more important than our ability to earn money is our attitude towards it, okay? And this is about the things that are in our control. This is about what we choose to spend our money or don't choose to spend our money on, whether we plan for the future or not. All of these behaviours and confidence is down to us and our own personal individual choices, okay? Often people say to me, and I'll put this elephant in the room out there now, surely it's just about pay. It's not about pay. It's what you do with what you've got to give you the meaningful life that you want today and in the future. And that is down to us as individuals to feel empowered to do that. So is this not an easy subject? So let's open up the floor. I would encourage people to come off mute. Just tell me then, what are some of the challenges that you're hearing and seeing on the ground? So who wants to kick us off? And feel free to use the chat as well. Give me some examples. What sort of challenges are you seeing from people? Hi, Deb.
Oh, hi. I think in our industry, I work in the recruitment industry. We had one of our major clients go into administration this year. So the impact of that has meant that a lot of our people have earned less money this year. And with the cost of living as well, it's almost like a double impact. So the opportunity to earn their bonuses and commissions from our point of view as a company, it's also been very tough. So that has an impact on what we can do for our employees as well. So, the benefits that we would usually do, we had to be very careful about that. So that then had an impact as well. So that's been a particular challenge for us this year.
Yeah, and we see that with the work we've done with clients in the recruitment industry. In particular, we've done one of our very first clients was Hayes Recruitment, believe it or not. And we've been on that journey with them and understanding it's difficult when you're on a variable income to begin with.
Yeah.
Then seeing, like you say, drops in bonuses at a time when prices are going up and inflation is increasing. And often because people have relied heavily on those bonuses, they then don't know what to do because they lack the skills, the education bit in between, and that's where they're getting into some issues. So there is that lack of education bit in there, definitely.
And also I think the expectation is that year on year your salary will go up. And it's a bit of a shock when it doesn't as well. So yeah,
absolutely. And because we've been in such a low inflation, low economic period for so long, people's lifestyles have been very different, and now we're having to adjust lifestyles, and that transition, you know, because we've got less disposable income in itself is a challenge for people, and that's where the education piece comes in. Okay, is there any other challenges coming through? Let's have a look. Mortgage rates, yes, Ryan. Yes, definitely. Okay, so all these trigger points like Christmas, school holidays, kids' school uniform, Easter, all these things are trigger points, you know, and then you layer in the cost of living as well. And, you know, that's where we originally started, really, was looking at the cost of living and the challenges that that brings to people, because of the rising costs of things like food and energy and interest rates, like you've said. But it might surprise you to know that actually 50% of the population right now don't know how to budget. They don't have those skills, maybe because they haven't needed to before, possibly because we don't learn this stuff at school or through our, you know, growing up and through our education. And because we don't know what to do, that's the gap that's missing. Okay, and that then means that, you know, people have less disposable income, which means their resilience is low. You know, we've got here, you know, 20% of the population right now have less than £100 in emergency savings. So when things go wrong, what do we typically do? We revert to credit, and therefore the credit and the debt starts to increase. And, you know, let's not forget here the massive impact that money worries has on other areas of our well-being as well, in particular our mental health and quality of sleep and relationship with others. And, you know, it kind of is the underlying root cause of a lot of our mental health challenges. But from an employer's point of view, this issue is coming at a cost, £56 billion a year. When you look at things like absenteeism in the workplace across the UK, when you look at the staff turnover and recruitment costs, you can see some of those big numbers there on the screen. And, you know, this is about how we can support that investment into colleagues and staff's well-being. For every pound invested, you're going to get a much bigger return when it comes to things like the cost of absenteeism. So, you know, we know that this isn't only impacting employees in terms of day-to-day managing money, but it's also a huge cost to employers as well. Okay, now I've got some interesting stats here, and Sandy, I know you've seen some of these, but this may or may not come as a surprise to you that financial worries are the top cause of stress at the moment in the UK. And a lot of people say, well, that will disappear. Surely we're coming out the back end of the cost of living. And I just completely disagree. I think this is a massive educational gap, whether we're in a cost of living crisis or not. You know, understanding how to get to grips with our money, you know, causes stress, whether we're in a, you know, rising interest rate environment or not. We also know the links to suicide and self-harm. You know, with financial stress now, they're twice as likely to have those kind of thoughts. And we, you know, we're a big ambassador of Ripple suicide prevention, as Sandy said at the beginning, because it, you know, you just don't know what's going on in people's lives. We also, this is an interesting one, only 5% of employees believe that their workplace have a financial well-being policy in place. And we see this because it's such a taboo subject, often the pillar that's missed or forgotten, or employers don't know where to start, hence why, you know, we're here to help. Right, so what are the solutions then? So some of the solutions and top tips. I'm just going to give you a flavour of some of the things that we touch on through our educational workshops and through the work that we do with employers. And, you know, there's a whole host of things, and I'm only going to pull out a few here, but just to give you a flavour. Budgeting has to be probably the biggest skill that people are lacking right now. I said earlier about 50% of people don't have those skills. So, you know, we will take people through how to budget. We have a couple of workshops around budgeting to help people know how to plan, how to make changes, how to be savvy with their money, how to plan for their spending. All these things that, you know, you might take for granted, I can guarantee you people are really struggling to get their heads around budgeting. Managing debt, managing credit. You know, when people suddenly are finding that they're missing payments and that debt is spiraling out of control, most people don't know what to do or where to go for help and support. And opening up that conversation and asking for help, you know, it just doesn't happen. So we talk a lot about debt management, in particular Step Change, which is the UK's largest debt support charity. We partner with them because people aren't aware of the brilliant work that they do, and the debt counsellors, and you know, it's free, it's a charity, it's not going to cost them anything. But yet people still will Google debt solutions and up will pop debt management companies that will charge you money and fees to, you know, provide those services. Equally, we know that you know, things like energy, food, you know, all these things, we will spend time helping people through our training to, you know, come up with different solutions. There's lots of things, certainly in the food space, that people could be doing that people just aren't. So again, we will, you know, help them through that. And the same when it comes to managing credit. When I ever ask the question, do you look at your credit file? Everyone tells me they look at their credit score, but they've never actually looked at their credit file. They are two different things. So talking to people, helping them understand how to empower themselves to manage their finances. That's just the flavour of some of the things. But I'm going to hand over to Ryan now. He's going to chat you through FinWELL and what we do, and how we're hoping to support colleagues through HR departments. So Ryan, over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Justine. And hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. So yeah, as Sandia said, I'm Ryan, the founder of FinWELL, and we've been on a bit of a journey for the last year and a half now. And the demand for, you know, financial well-being, for financial education, linking that to mental health, reducing absenteeism, you know, improving productivity performance has been, you know, our passion really. And we're really trying to do three things for the companies and the employees that we work with, and they're here, you can see them. We're trying to help employees, first of all, understand what financial well-being is all about. Hopefully then we can measure it as well. There's ways that we can measure that. I'll touch on that in a moment, and then improve it. And that then leads on to all the other benefits that I mentioned. Hopefully that will have an impact and give us healthier relationships with money for the long term, and also better mental health as well. But how do we do that? The actual practical ways really have come from working with companies and them telling us what they want, to be perfectly honest. You know, we've been quite reactive to the needs of our clients. One of the first ways was to try and measure have a scoring system really to measure where employees are at with their financial well-being. What are their specific pain points? You know, how can we actually improve these things? So we came up with a scoring system. We call it your FinWELL Power Plan. We'll share some videos after this session that tell you all about how that works. But it's a really, really good way not to just guess at what might help your people, because every company is different. We can actually drill down into some of the data in a really simple way, and then try and tailor the support that you might need for your people. There's 5 key areas of that, as you can see here, the 5 kind of key elements of financial well-being. And one of them is their area of focus. And I think everyone on the call might agree that when it comes to finances and different stages of life, there's just so much to think about. It can be quite overwhelming, actually. I think we've got a very quick poll, but you know, we break it down into 5 key areas, and different people, different members of your teams will have a focus, and the idea being that they focus on that first and then move through the different areas. Do you want to do that quickly, Justine? Just that last poll, or you're on mute.
It's done. It's on the screen.
Oh, brilliant. One second.
We've got some results coming in. We've got a few people coming in here. Interesting.
Yeah. And again, what we tend to do, we've got videos and ways that we can help educate what these areas of focus actually are. so that employers will know what ones are relevant to them. Then we was asked by companies, okay, that's great, we know what our people want now. And the feedback to us was that the majority of employees wanted to, as a first step, just access really trusted, simple educational content around all of these different areas of focus. So what we did was create financial wellbeing microsites for our clients, for our companies, and these will be available to members of HR department, so that they could give access to their teams, and they could then go on their own journey in their own time, really, and at their own pace, in confidence, to improve their knowledge, their understanding, and their confidence. There's also some importance to having varied content. Not everybody just wants to read articles. Some people might want to watch videos or listen to podcasts and audio files or look at visual infographics. Really important that we offer various different bits of content for your people. The next thing that we was asked for was to really develop our workshop. So you've had a bit of a flavour about how we interact on our group workshops, really creating that psychologically safe space, and encouraging people to talk about money. And that's massively evolved. We started with our one workshop in lockdown, which was all about cost of living. And it's just, exploded with lots of different topics and themes that will affect different people at different times. So we do lots of different group workshops. They can be online or in person as well, and they can be recorded for people that can't attend or for new starters. We was then asked to go one step further, and for lots of people that attended the group workshops, was asking for a bit more private and confidential support. So we developed our one-to-one guidance sessions, where employees and leadership team members can ask certain questions, go through the power plan sort of guide that we created, and really set them on their way to trying to take action and improve their financial well-being. So they've been very popular. We was also asked more recently to create leadership training and champion training. So this is quite similar, if you're aware of kind of mental health first aid training, to really upskill your management, your leadership teams, and your HR department contacts to make sure they can spot the signs of poor financial well-being, trying to get in early and be preventative rather than reactive, to have empathetic conversations and be able to have the skills to do that, and to be able to effectively signpost. Deb, you mentioned about employee benefits, but being effective at signposting to what the benefits are, what is available, so that they can hopefully improve things for themselves. So that's been quite popular. That's just launched as well. Just to touch on some of the benefits, hopefully, that are important to businesses right now. I think, as Justine said, we're heading into even tougher times. So hopefully this can help in lots of different ways, really. But I think ultimately making sure you've got a happy workforce, a healthy workforce, that is not absent, that is at work, and being productive and performing well, ultimately, impacting on profit as well, which we all need to be sustainable. So just some of the lessons we'll have to share. So I'm just conscious of time. I want to make sure we've got plenty of time for questions and answers, but just some of the things we've learned. Obviously, the fact that this isn't learned at school. So, this is a problem, cost of living crisis or not. This is something that we didn't learn perhaps at school. Massive stigma and taboo about around this. So we have to try and make it fun and entertaining even, and engaging. The data-driven piece there to try and find out what your people actually need and want first. Making sure that there is leadership buy-in from the top, so that that will drill down and filter down throughout your teams. Really important that the communications are very good to how this is positioned, and that we're not financial advisors giving advice. Some of us have got qualifications in that, but this is more about talking about money and education. So just some of the lessons that we've learned through our time. I work with over 100 companies now. But some of the things, just to finish on what we're trying to do with HR department, is we've worked with lots of different companies, different sizes, different sector, public sector and private sector, and really now focusing on SMEs and making this simple for an SME to implement, but also making it affordable. So what we've tried to do with HR department is put some packages together that can just be implemented dependent on how many employees you've got, that will give you a flavour of the different services that we offer, so that you can, you know, gather that data and know what your people want, that you can give them access to educational content, that you can give them access to some of our group workshops. And if you want additional support around the one-to-one guidance sessions or the leadership training, that's available as well. But that's just some of the things that we do on a practical side. What I would say, if there's any interest, just to get in touch, you've got the website there, you've got our email addresses, you can get in touch with Felicity or Sandhya at HR department as well. And we're very approachable. Hopefully you've seen that from this session. We're more than happy to have kind of discovery calls and just find out what will work best for your companies. But yeah, thank you for listening. I want to hand back to Sandhya now, just to go through if there are questions or concerns or challenges, and open up the floor for some discussion, really.
Thank you very much, Justine and Ryan. Interesting as always. And yes, I have seen some of these slides before, so it's just good to kind of go through it again and see a different perspective, hopefully from the questions that come up. So do we have any questions from any of our lovely attendees? Feel free to just put your hands up and speak and switch on your video cameras maybe, so we can just have a conversation going. I
think we've had some pre-submitted questions as well, haven't we, Sandhya? So
I do actually. So I don't mind. Yeah, I don't mind opening up the Q&A session. So one, actually, these two questions are a bit linked. What would you suggest SMEs do to support financial well-being that is sort of freely available, and what is the entry-level cost?
I'll let Ryan go for that one.
You want me to do that? Yeah. First of all, there's loads of stuff you can do for free, and that might sound counterintuitive from a company that are trying to provide these services, but we're more than happy to share some of those. And I think the first thing is yeah, just asking your people, if you've got surveys, processes, and procedures in place where you can ask your people what they want, or you've got kind of ways you can have open discussions, just to find out what's on their mind and what are the challenges first. Another thing is to look at your current providers and get them to do as much as possible for you. So, you know, with auto enrollment, you'll probably have, you know, a pension provider. What can they offer you? You might have an EAP in place, an employee assistance program. You might have other providers that are offering you certain things, and just to evaluate what you've already got and try and get some more out of them. We try and do that with the companies we're working with, is work with the other providers. We don't kind of tread on their toes. We do a very different thing, but try and enhance the use of some of those other providers and some of their employee benefits and their services. There's also some brilliant free organizations or organizations that offer free services. We touched on Step Change there, and I would massively encourage everyone just to write that down if they take nothing else from this session, to look into Step Change. What they offer is free. We want to get Step Change into every company that we work with, because we've seen firsthand just how important, and I don't know, it's just quite life-changing and life-saving once people understand there is a solution out there. There is a company that can hold your hand, contact your providers if there are issues around debt, that can put a plan in place, give you some breathing space. Could be the massive difference for some people. I've had personal experience of this as well that I don't mind sharing, and seen it so much with some of the one-to-one sessions that we've had, by people knowing that there is an organisation out there that can help, can massively impact. There's the Citizens Advice Bureau, there's Money and Pension Service, Money Helper, lots of free services. So if there's kind of no budget there at all, or very, very limited budget, I would say to look at some of these things first. If you want to then enhance it or give a more holistic approach, then you can look at additional services, I suppose. Anything to add on that, Justine or Lucy?
Yeah, I think it's knowing how to signpost effectively, which is what we're trying to achieve, so that people know where to go depending on their circumstances. Deb's just mentioned in there about Step Change. Previously was a huge wait time. I've no doubt that Step Change are completely overrun at the moment, but that doesn't mean to say that their services are are not there. They also have online services as well as face-to-face services, and they have a brilliant website as well where people can ask questions and get immediate responses. So it depends on what kind of service, I guess, that you're going to need from Step Change. But again, lots of resources there to help people. So, but it's often people just don't know where to start, I think. So it's, you know, we will help people with knowing where to go for some of that credible free additional resources. Yeah.
Thank
Any
you for
other
that,
questions?
Ryan and Justina. I think you've also popped in that you've got an integrated app so you can help employees make contact. That should helpfully get, sorry, the chat window's disappeared, but there is some information from Ryan on the chat window if you just want to look at it.
Yeah,
Yeah, to help staff get through. That's to answer Deb's question. All right, yeah.
Yeah, we also found that, like Justine just said, it's about effective signposting rather than just saying, oh, have a look on our intranet or take a look at Step Change or look at their website. Not many people are actually going to do that. So when we do our one-to-ones, if we see that there are issues around debt, and that's quite clearly, you know, a challenge for people, we can take them through that process and it links straight through to Step Change's details and maybe give them that helping hand to actually sort of take action.
Thank you very much. You mentioned signposting, Ryan, and you know, one of the things that comes to mind, given again the line of work that we as HR consultants have to undertake, is recently the Domestic Abuse Act has said that employers do have a duty of care to sort of, you know, address any situations of disclosures that employees might make in relation to domestic abuse. And what really is the link? The question here is, what is the link between domestic and financial abuse, and what services do you offer in terms of signposting?
Sure. So I think a lot of this is about education and understanding the difference between the two. So we've just collaborated with Sharon Livermore, who I think you all know from Sharon's policy, to really raise awareness through delivery of a workshop. So we have a specific designed workshop specifically to help employers understand the difference between domestic and financial abuse and things that employers can put in place in order to help and support any colleagues that might be going through that. So certainly from an educational workshop point of view, I think that's hugely important. But like you say, knowing where to go, which websites, all of that is now included in the design that we've put together with support from Sharon. So, you know, again, if that's an area that people are concerned about, we can support with that.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? I'm just keeping an eye on the chat window before I look at the questions that have come in. Independently. All right.
Deb, did you ask a question about confidentiality, Deb? What are you thinking?
Just around, so obviously the data gathering, the information that people are putting in so that you've got a picture of where you may need to target or gaps.
Yeah.
How do you reassure employees through your offering that what they're putting in is confidential? I know, like, you know, there may be something that they want advice from you specifically, but they may want to keep that confidential to us as employers.
The data gathering typically comes through using things like polls on Zoom. So everything's anonymous. So we're not going to know how people are scoring themselves. But from an employer point of view, it will give you the data to say, you know, X percentage of colleagues are saying this, X percentage of colleagues are worried about that. So that's designed that way specifically to address that concern about confidentiality. Obviously from a one-to-one perspective as well, you know, if a colleague wants a one-to-one with one of the FinWELL team, depending on their area of focus, you know, we're not passing any information back to employers. It is just an informal guidance chat. Remember, we're not giving advice because we're not qualified. We are very much about guidance and information and signposting, and it's never been a concern up to this point.
Good. Okay, thanks.
Brilliant.
I think
There's
just
another question. I'm sorry, Ryan. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Deb, on that, that's a big one that we always talk about with employers. You know, the client confidentiality and privacy. There's a big enough taboo and stigma around this anyway. The last thing we want to do is make people feel like it's going to get shared. People are thinking about the consequences of admitting things. So it's a fine balance, to be honest. And we've just got to make sure that through maybe sharing some of our content with companies and then the employees, some of the videos that we produce, that they can start to build that trust with us as a training provider, and then maybe coming on to group workshops that we deliver, seeing us online or in person, and building that even further. And then just knowing that, if they do have one-to-one sessions or any information that they share on our group sessions is completely confidential and gathered in an anonymous way.
Thank you. There's another question from Denise Johnson. Denise, did you want to, is she still here? I'm just trying to look. Yeah, do you want to unmute yourself? And
yeah, good morning.
Hi. Good morning.
I'm just looking at people that already are living, should I say, hand to mouth, and they are spending what they earn and more each month, and in a position where they're not quite retirement age. However, they do suffer with ill health and are looking toward that pathway, and so it's really difficult to. Obviously, we can't offer that sort of advice, but it's a really difficult position to work alongside somebody in that position, not understanding, not being able to work because of their ill health, but also, not knowing how to cope financially afterwards.
Sure.
Well,
yeah, go on, Ryan.
I was just going to say, so my background is in financial services and pensions and investments. And we also have John in our team, who is Justine's husband as well, who's part of the team and specialises in that. There's a couple of things worth mentioning, that a lot of people are unaware that a lot of personal pensions can be accessed from the age of 55, rather than people thinking, it's state pension age, 65, 66, 67. So that's an option. Again, it would be hugely important to access professional advice and get advice on that, because there are consequences of accessing pensions early, various things that people need to be able to consider before doing that. But there are, encouragingly, certain criteria and qualifications to be able to access pensions due to ill health. So there are, an advisor would know those and be able to go through those with an employee and advise them accordingly as to what options, if any, are available to them. But I do know that, due to ill health, especially if it's terminal, or critical, there are options about accessing, funds through pensions.
And it's such a complex area as well, Denise. It's a great question. That it probably needs that advice piece as well. So it probably needs a bit of hand-holding, someone that can do the research, look at the type of pension, whether they can access or can't access it. I was also going to say somewhere like Citizens Advice as well would also perhaps give them some guidance around things like benefits and eligibility for benefits, if that's relevant to this individual. But it's things like that people probably need some hand-holding in terms of guidance, and then signposting for advice if that's the complex area.
Again, another free one. So through Money Helper, there's a pension line. So they can't give advice on you should do this or a recommendation, but they can, be at the other end of the phone to talk through some of the challenges and some of the options that they might want to look further into.
Great, thank you very much. Very helpful. Thank you.
I don't know, again, whether this question would link to the question that Denise has just raised, Ryan and Justine, but we hear a lot about mental health first aiders. And the question here is, how can mental health first aiders be supported with money-related issues?
So I think it's, the mental health first aiders, they play a vital role. It's obviously a volunteer role on top of the day job, in a lot of organisations. But sometimes colleagues may want to talk to another colleague rather than a manager or a leader or HR or, so actually what we're doing at the moment, and we've just launched it and we're delivering, is training for the mental health first aiders. We call it financial health first aid training, to equip them with some basic understanding, where to go in terms of effective signposting, how to have empathetic conversations, so that they are then equipped if colleagues are going directly to them with any kind of sort of money related issues. And when we've spoken to mental health first aiders, that's probably the bit that isn't included in their initial mental health first aid training. So we're just about to, fingers crossed, partner with Mental Health First Aid England to include financial health first aid training as a matter of course going forward. So yeah, we're running a program that you know, will hopefully equip existing people with some of those vital skills they need to help others.
I was going to add to that. What we've learned as well, just from feedback from employers that we've worked with, is that it's really, really important for mental health first aiders or managers or leaders to be able to help themselves first. There's you know, a bit of imposter syndrome maybe for people thinking, well, how can I help people in my team when I need some help as well, and I need to get a plan in place to improve my own financial well-being. So one of the elements of the financial health first aid training is, you know, to try and help the person put their own oxygen mask on first, so to speak, to use that analogy, and then give them the confidence to have a plan themselves, whatever that might be, and then be able to help their team members as well. So I think that's quite an important part of it.
Thank you. Any other questions from any of our attendees?
I had one that comes up all the time, and we've sort of touched on it, but with nearly every company that we work with, we have to address the fact they ask, is pay just going to come up? Is it going to open up a can of worms where there's a discussion or a debate, or even more, you know, strong words being exchanged around just not being paid enough? And although financial well-being is actually huge, and we cover certain aspects of it, obviously fair pay and, you know, all of that area is really, really important, but it's never come up on our sessions because the way we frame it, obviously lots of companies are trying to pay as much as they can. There was lots of extra payments in lockdown and cost of living, but we do focus, as Justine mentioned beforehand, on, you know, what we do with the money we have, you know, our attitudes, our behaviors, our habits, the decisions that we take. Normally through lack of education is why that could be improved, but it has never come up. You know, it's not kind of a free forum just to talk about, well, we want extra money. We could all do with extra money, and fair pay is really, really important, but that challenge kind of is normally discussed with employers.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely see as HR consultants, again, you know, when there's it's almost assumed that a pay review is going to result in an increase in salary, but also not just the increase in salary, but also that it's going to take away all their money worries, when actually a pay review, and we all know that satisfaction around a pay rise lasts maybe for a quarter of 2 quarters. Beyond that, the problems still have to be addressed around that. And this is where I think we've seen the benefit of partnering with you guys, given all the signposting and the advice that you've got. So no, that's the more holistic approach from what I've seen.
I would also say, Sandy, that even if people start out with, it's just I need more pay, once they've seen and been educated, the light bulb comes on and goes, ah, right, there are things I can, there are areas of my money that perhaps I can, you know, be a bit more frivolous or make some sacrifices, or, you know, and often when we go through on a one-to-one and we go through a budgeting exercise, and Lucy backed me up here as our budgeting queen, what we tend to see when we go through those exercises with individuals is there's lots of areas of their finances that they can make changes to, or stop paying for things, or start, you know, making savings elsewhere. We see that quite a lot, don't we, Lucy?
Yeah, we really do. And I think the difference is where the cost of living crisis, we obviously all have learned about it in the news, and we understand it from a mental point of view. Actually, quite a lot of people still don't understand it from a practical point of view, and actually how they can apply that to their own income. Because even if they have had a pay review and they've had a pay rise, they think that's going to be okay, as you've just said. But actually that isn't the case at all, because there's not a lot of planning that goes into managing people's money. So actually not understanding that they're now spending £130 a week in the supermarket as opposed to £80 a week in the supermarket, they haven't necessarily factored that in a lot, as long as the, you know, other increases, and having that sense of planning ahead in order so that they can understand of where their money really truly is going is definitely one of the missing pieces.
We talk, Sandy, quite a lot actually on one of our workshops about money mindset, and getting people to think about the reasons why they spend the money the way they do, and some of the psychological, you know, things that go on in our heads, or what triggers us to spend money perhaps unnecessarily. And actually getting underneath the skin of that makes people realize that actually there are changes they can make that might ease some of the challenges that they're facing, so that it becomes less about pay and more about them doing you know, something a bit different. So but yes, there's lots to learn when it comes to budgeting and why we spend our money on the things that we do.
Just also on that, just as it popped into my head as well, is benefits, you know, and what people are actually entitled to. Justine mentioned it there very briefly on the slide. We go into that in a lot of detail, where £18 billion now per year is not applied for or taken by people that they're entitled to that. And a lot of us think that benefits might be just when we're unemployed and we can access it then, but it's not. There's lots of different things that we can access dependent on our situations and our family situations that just go missing, you know. And there's the website Turn to Us and entitled to different websites and resources that could mean that extra money that's going to make all the difference. So it's, you know, also getting the money that you're owed as well.
Great question from Deb. Can partners join the one-to-one conversations? If they want to, that's absolutely fine. You know, we do see challenges between, you know, partners, you know, have different thoughts and values as to how to spend money on things or not to spend money on things. But if a partner wants to join a one-to-one and that's, you know, the right thing, then fine, no problem. Any other questions? I can't see any more questions yet coming through the chat. So does anyone want to come off mute and ask any questions before we wrap up? Sandia, is there any others that are on your mind that you think people might want to know?
Well, when you were talking about mental health and gaining control, and sort of once you signpost people and, you know, they have the sense of gaining better control over their finances, I was just thinking, you know, it is definitely, there's another spanner in the works when you have addiction issues at play, because having dealt with these sort of problems again, where you link it with pay rises aren't enough, and suddenly you have an employee who's coming up to you and asking for advances. Well-meaning employers don't necessarily question it as much as maybe they should in the initial days, and an advance gets authorized, but excuse me, before you know it, it's leading them into a downward spiral of seeking more and more advances. And only when you get to a place where, excuse me, they aren't able to repay that to the employer do questions get asked. And we have discovered that actually there were addictions issues at play much later, and this person has already been taking advances for about 6 months. So it'll just be interesting to understand in what, you know, having you guys on the side, again, educating employees proactively, say, if you were to be there and we were to, you know, it's a bit like sliding doors. If you were already to be there in that scenario, in the first instance, when the request for advances came up, how would you sort of deal with that as a matter? And how would you work with the employer to address that?
Yeah, so I think it would be probably on a one-to-one basis to understand the need for the advance in the first place. And, you know, wage advances, like you say, you know, we see them as a good way in some respects because it can help with an emergency or a one-off, you know, cost. But if people are constantly relying on advances of wages, that there's usually an underlying issue. So, you know, we can work with people to try and establish, you know, why is that cropped up? Why is there no emergency savings set aside for when things go wrong? And, you know, help people understand where their money's going so they don't have to then apply for wage advances. So, you know, we will work with individuals on a one-to-one basis to help them. It usually comes down to budgeting and where they're spending their money. And addictions might need more specialist support. You know, we're not trained addiction counsellors, but, you know, it might need more specialist support. But, you know, often there's another reason, there's something underlying, and you'll only really get to that if you have a one-to-one.
So it sounds to me like it's almost like, you know, the education has to start with employers, and the key link there is the employer, because unless the employer signposts such an individual to yourselves in the first instance, that one-to-one is not going to be triggered.
And that's also, you know, equipping your managers and your, you know, line managers, HR people, wellbeing champions, mental health first aiders, so that if a request is coming in, that they have the skills to get under the skin of you know, what's the root cause of the issue. And that's where the financial health first aid training can support line managers as well as champions. So yeah, but it's a tricky one because you know, if it's a one-off wage advance, then there's, you know, usually a genuine reason. If it's a regular thing, there's something else going on, and it's how we get under the skin of that. So it could be about upskilling existing line managers to help that conversation, or referring for a one-to-one to help us do it.
I was going to say, Sandhya, as well, this is where we've learned that different methods might be effective for different people. Not everyone is going to want a one-to-one session with us, even if they have gone on a group workshop. And this is where we also try it with the educational content. They might see an article or a video that's on the microsite that we've created for a company, and that might be the light bulb moment to then signpost them to get help or to make a change. Yeah, lots of different videos that we're creating that they might watch, and that might make the difference. So there's no one way that's going to help everyone. It's kind of having all of those tools and all access to all of that support to make sure it kind of affects and impacts everyone.
Yeah. We got one question. I think Denise has her hands up. You've got time for one last question. Denise, thank you.
I think my question's been answered, really. I think when Sandhya spoke about you know, financial problems within the workplace and the link with mental health and addiction and other things like that, you know, I've had issues where I know people have committed suicide, and you think, oh my gosh, I didn't know anything was wrong with them. And actually, I think with having some mental health first aid training or that type of input within the workplace, it can help to identify these issues and support these people before it gets to that stage. So I will definitely be looking you up. So thank you very much. Yeah.
And on that note, you should go and have a look at Ripple suicide prevention, because we're partnering with Ripple. In fact, we've got a launch call this afternoon to learn a bit more about Ripple. But Ripple is designed to support individuals if they're searching online for you know, suicide related words and things, to help, you know, put interventions in place to stop that hopefully from happening. So if you want to find a bit more about Ripple prevention, look them up, and we'll get details out. We've got a call this afternoon, haven't we, Ryan, at 1 o'clock?
Yeah, I'll send the information. It's a free event, just to try and link financial well-being, mental health, and suicide prevention, because it's all kind of interlinked intrinsically. So we'll share the details if you want to join that.
Brilliant. Excellent discussion. Yeah, feel free to send any comments or points, you know, to the organisers. I'm hoping you've got our email to hand. But otherwise, I think we're just 1 minute past 11, and we might have to bring this session to a close now. Huge thanks to all of you for giving up an hour of your day's time. And thank you to Justine, Ryan and Lucy as well for joining us today.
Thanks all. Thank you, Sandhya, as well, and Felicity and the team. If anyone does want to get in touch with us or talk to us about costs or what support is in place, just drop us an email with Justine at FinWELL.uk, Ryan at FinWELL.uk, and we'll talk to you individually. But yeah, thank you ever so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.